A big welcome to all our attendees to this year's AGM. I want to first acknowledge and pay tribute to my predecessor, Professor Edmund Berg, who successfully steered the society through the pandemic and the challenges that came with that period. I would also like to thank Gavin Blackett, who retired as Executive Director at the end of the year. Welcome to Seb Hargreaves. A few of you have met Seb, or most of us have interacted with Seb. He's our new Executive Director. And want to extend my gratitude to all the members of the board, General Counsel, and our various committees for their work over the previous year. And a big welcome to new members of the committee. Thank you for those who finished their term at the end of 2022. This meeting is being recorded. A quick run through of the agenda. We'll start this year's with this year's lecture. Professor Dr. Naira Chamberlain is our speaker. Naira will talk about the challenges of OR in an increasingly data-driven world. There will be time for questions after the talk. And then Seb and I will review the past year. There are three strands to this. Inward-looking perspective, Seb will lead on that. I'll talk about outward-looking and external engagements. And then John Medhurst will share our plans for the 75th anniversary and OR 65. The last item on the agenda will focus on the 6 resolutions that were sent to members some weeks back. So if we look at what, just before we go on to the talk, I'll quickly introduce Naira. So very delighted to have Naira talk to us. He is currently the president of the Mathematical Association and is the immediate past president of the Institute of Mathematics and its applications. Naira also sits on the executive committee of the Academy of Mathematical Sciences. He has over 30 years of experience at writing mathematical models, simulations, algorithms that solve complex industrial problems. He has developed mathematical solutions within industry, such as the defense, aerospace, automotive, and energy sectors. This has included periods in France, the Netherlands, Germany, and Israel. During his career, Naira has chaired and organized many conferences, including the annual Black Heroes of Mathematics. As well as this, he has been an invited speaker to many prestigious conferences and events, such as the International Mathematical Union, International Congress of Mathematics, and in 2018, he was named the world's most interesting mathematician. Naira was awarded an OBE in 2022 Queen's Honors List for services to mathematical sciences. Please join me in welcoming Professor Naira Chamberlain to deliver this year's lecture. Naira, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that nice and kind introduction, Gilbert. You're very much too kind, and thank you, not only to Gilbert, for Seb, and for Kathleen too, for inviting me to give this talk. Right, so we're going to move to the. Okay, have I got control? Yes, I have. Okay, so the talk for today is called "Strategic Modeling: The Challenges of Operational Research." OR in an increasing data-driven world. Now, this is very similar to the talk that I gave at the joint OR and IMA conference, but it's like a variation on that. Okay, so moving on. Okay, now, in the summer of 2001, I was traveling back from the Netherlands and I met these two academics, and I got talking to the academics. They asked me what I did. I told them what I did, and they told me what they did. I thought, oh, very, very interesting. But and what they said was that they were very much interested in machine learning, and they was giving me the history of machine learning from 1940. And I thought this is very, very interesting, because these are academics who were very much into machine learning, and they were saying, well, moving on, next slide. And I said, yeah, and it's talking about the rise and the greatness of convolutionally neural networks. And I thought, yes, this sounds very interesting. And this was very, very, very interesting. But what they said to me to say is that really and truly, with the rise of machine learning and AI, this would be the end of OR and mathematical modeling. It was saying mathematical modeling and OR will no longer exist because of machine learning and neural network. So I said, go to the next. So I said, well, guess what? This is 2023, 22 years later. We are actually still here, you know, both the OR Society, which I'm proud to be a member of, and also the Institute of Mathematics and Application. We are still here. So, but the question is, in 22 years' time from now, you know, let's say in 2045, what challenges will we face? What challenges will we face? Yeah. So now, thing is, one of the things that's an article that I actually read, you know, this year was an article that says game over for Maths A-level, where they said that the combination of ChatGPT with Wolfram plugin just scored 96% in a UK's Maths A-level paper. That's happened this year. Now, can you imagine if that's happening this year? Where will we be in 22 years' time? If they can tackle an A-level paper now with ChatGPT, you know, with other associated software, where will we be in 22 years' time? So, and the question is there a danger of being crowded out? So we're talking about these variations of artificial intelligence, data science, black box, deep learning, machine learning, and other names that will come up from AI. Will we have the danger of us being crowded out? Now, this is a picture of a Bournemouth of the beach at Bournemouth at on the first bank holiday when the COVID restrictions were lifted. Now, and that person in the middle was very, very crowded out. Will this happen to our professions, to mathematics and OR? Will we be crowded out by the encroaching domain of artificial intelligence and other things? Yep. So, or can we counter this by thinking more strategically? Yeah. Now, my name is Nara Chamberlain, and this is my story. Now, with me, I wear many hats. You know, I'm a technical fellow for Atkins. I'm the past president of the Institute of Mathematics and Application. I actually sits on the executive committee of the Academy for Mathematical Sciences, but I'm also the current president of the Mathematical Association. But today, I'm very much wearing the hat of a technical fellow. Yeah. So, but it really and truly, my reflection in this talk is a mixture of technical and personal opinions based on my experience so far. You know, now I've worked in the defense industry, I've worked in energy and utilities, I've worked in automotive and in retail. Now, even though I'll be expressing an opinion, I don't mind my opinions being challenged. I'm not trying to say, because I say like this, everybody must think like this. What I want to do is encourage a debate and us to think about what is the USP of OR? What do we stand for, and how are we going to move forward in an increasing data-driven, AI-driven world? Yeah. So it's a case of having that debate. So what I'm doing is just like say a reflection of my own technical and personal opinions. But I welcome you to disagree and add your views, because from that, having that healthy debate, we all grow together. So moving on now. So really and truly, yeah, like I said, the abstract of this talk is the challenge to OR and modeling in an increasing data-driven world are real. But if we look at our discipline's USP and learn lessons from the scientific past, we see that our future is bright if we think strategically. Yeah. So moving on. So here's a question from the past. Did the rise of theoretical physics signal the end of experimental physics? Second question, did the rise of finite elements signal the end of continuous mathematical modeling? Third question, did the rise of computational fluid dynamics signal the end of fluid dynamics? The answer is no. Both disciplines involved and enhanced each other. What you found was there was cooperation, not competition. Yeah, cooperation, not competition. Yeah. So now, just showing you an example, again, from my personal opinion, but from my personal pattern, again, it's technical, is this whole idea of numerical simulation versus analytical approximation. Now, for my PhD, which was called Extension of the Gambler's Room Problem Played Over Networks, what I was doing, I was mostly doing a numerical simulation, and then my supervisor stated that I should do an analytical approximation as well. Now, using both these techniques in tandem, I was able to enhance understanding of the problem. Yeah. So what we had is that in terms of the, let's say, the gambler's ruin problem, which was to almost like to mimic how businesses would actually behave in a competitive market. The saying is, if you actually increase the risk that you try to take, the question is, what is the mean time of actually achieving your target, and conversely, what is the likelihood of a business becoming bankrupt? So what we find here is that, again, if the same we increase our target, what we found is in terms of our mean time to achieve our target, it was quite linear. And then we hit like this critical point, and there was like this, almost like say this phase transition there. But the question is, yeah, we could do that through simulation, and we kept on seeing this behavior. But the question is, what influenced the position of this critical target? Now, through simulation, it was very difficult actually to say precisely what influenced that position of that critical target. Yeah. But through analytical methods, by doing that analytical approximation, we came up with this mathematical expression, understanding the dynamics, and actually, as you can see from the figure on the right, when we actually compared the analytical to the numerical, we came up with a good agreement. So henceforth, one method actually enhanced the other. Henceforth, we got much more understanding of the overall dynamics. Yeah. So however, if I went back to my friends, I'd say, my friends would be adamant. They would say that the rise of data-driven modeling techniques would mean the downfall of OR and mathematical modeling eventually. If I go and contact them and say, look, this is what I've done, this is what they're saying. So, but what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to give you a quote from one of my role models, and my role model is Katherine Johnson, who was actually depicted in the film Hidden Figures. And what she said is this: we will always have STEM with us. Some things will drop out of the public eye and will go away, but there'll always be science, engineering, and technology, and there'll always be mathematics. Or let me just do a little change on my role models quote there, and operational research. Let's add that in as well. So yes. So, but the key thing that's come from there is that some things will drop out of the public eye and will go away. Some things will become fashionable, some things will not become fashionable. But OR and mathematics is here to stay. Yeah. So, but what I'm going to say is about artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., is in the increasing data-driven world, this is very much in the public eye, and I believe it will continue to be so. Yeah. So, because it's a powerful technique, and its potential is immense. Its potential is immense. Yeah. So now, but if our subject, as academics predicted, if our subject fall, what could happen? Now, I think this is a picture of the fall of Constantinople. Now, I'm just saying, Mass and OR is in the castle, and you're seeing data-driven models all coming. So, what if our subject fall? What could happen? So, actually, again, looking into the scientific past, we could say, well, it gives us some clues. See, there's possibilities of future real-world applications that not being sustainable. And the question is, when I give you one. Here's a warning from the engineering. When mass no longer, and I say OR, is sustained, and when the mass can no longer sustain an applications, lessons can be learned from the world of engineering. Now, many engineering applications use mathematics and OR in the right way. However, when we remove the scientific and the mathematical and the OR foundations, in some cases, it could lead to compromising and or corruption of the solution. I say again, compromising and or corruption of the solution. Give you one example. Here is the Reynolds equation that was done by Osborne Reynolds. Now, and seeing as this exist. This is, he invented this formula, and what happened was engineers would got this formula and it disappears, and now there's no longer research being done on the Reynolds equation by the mathematics or the OR community, because we don't really know about the Reynolds equation. However, when I actually worked for an engineering company, I came across this equation, and what I personally saw was, okay, they would find, let's say, the solution, because this is working out, let's say, the pressure of oil lubrication on the side of the piston, and by doing a double integration, you would find the load. But when they actually looked at the actual theoretical solution and compare it to the actual the real life solution, they found that there was actually a difference. Now, if this was existing in the OR mathematics community, we would go back to that equation and we'd improve that equation. But what was done was actually, all they did was they just times the that double integral by 100 and saying that's it. So they just took the solution, times by 100, and moved on. Now, this isn't an equation that's moved out of our community into another community, and this is how they actually are using it. And the question is that sustainable? Next one. Now, designing a G-rotor. Now, this is another engineering application that I came across, where what they do is that they use this mathematical and an equation to design a G-rotor that actually pumps oil through a car engine. But when I was doing some vector analysis, because what they're trying to do is to try to look at the normal of the curve. But let's say at the point where you have these 2 points, you will have actually 2 normals. The engineers didn't really understood the vector analysis. So all they did was took those 2 points and took the average. This resulted into that the shape actually got corrupted, and when they actually made the G-rotor, we wouldn't turn neither in the rig nor in the car. Do you know what I mean? Again, not understanding the underlying science, caused the solution to be compromised and corrupted. So what is the science? Now, one of the things I liked is, the science of better decisions making in a complex world. I know one time we was running this campaign of the science of better. It is so important, the science of better. Sometimes we have to look into the past to see what we need to do for the future, the science of better, yeah? And going into the science better, there's this gentleman here, and his name is Professor Keith Still, and he had 3 modeling outcomes, yeah, and he said this in his talk, the bigger optimization project in the world. Now, his 3 modeling outcomes was 1, to understand, to predict, and to influence. To understand, to predict, and to influence. These are the measures how the quality of your model, yeah, if it's OR mathematical, this is the quality of your model: to understand, to predict, and to influence. Yes. However, in a more data-driven methodology, the principle of to understand is sometimes gets lost, sometimes gets midway. They actually focus just to predict and to influence, but to understand actually gets lost. So here goes. Let me give you an example. Yeah. We're using, let's say, data-driven AI tools to predict and influence what we do, but we don't understand the problem. Have a look at this description of this tool. What it says is this tool, it involves a lot of calculations. These calculations goes into many layers of depth with different numbers and combination numbers carrying out various meanings. And what this tool can do, it can answer questions concerning job and career choices. It can offer in-depth personal analysis of personality and behavior patterns. It can discuss the trends of events to come. It can assist in personal growth and self-evaluation. It can propose a selection of dates for special events, and it can help you choose your professional name, business name, or stage name. Now, doesn't this sound like an AI data-driven tool? Yes. Well, actually, you're wrong. It's actually a numerology tool. This is actually a description of a numerology tool. So the question is here, if you look at this, prediction without understanding, a data-driven model will collect data, make predictions, and to influence the outcome. Numerology actually collects data, makes prediction to influence an outcome. So we have to be very careful of what we are. Are we scientists? Yes or no? Or are we numerologists? Yes. So, and then there's a thing, there's a quote that says, if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. Yeah. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is in an increasing data-driven world, which direction do we wish to move towards? Do we wish to move towards standing on the shoulders of scientists, standing on the shoulders of scientists, or do you want to move into a world where we're acting and behaving more like numerologists, yes? So, and you may think that what I'm doing is an exaggeration, but I have actually experienced this quite personally. You know, one time I was working for an organization and a computer scientist came up to me and says, no, I am not religious, but I believe that machine learning is a modern day prophet. And I'm thinking, what? You know, he's not talking about the scientific basis there. You know, he said that machine learning algorithms are a modern day prophets. Yes. And I go on. One time I worked for a retail organization, and what we wanted to do is that we wanted to use machine learning to do some classification of our customer. And the director, one of the directors at the time, he said to me, I said, oh, I can use these two AI machine learning tools put together to come up with this way to do the segmentation of our customer. And I said, well, I'm not too sure you can do that. I'm not too sure about the underlying mathematics, but I'm sure the way these tools have been described, I don't think that can actually segment the customer. And so I said, okay, I said to this to me, I said, okay, it's your choice. This is what you want to do. But what I'll do is I will do a statistical test on the outcome to see whether there's a significant difference between the groups, the segmented groups that these two algorithms have chosen. So I did that, and then I tested it, got the results back, tested it at a 1%, 5%, 10%, and 20% level, and each of those levels, it was not significant. So I went back to my to the director. I said, look, I've done a statistical test on the results, and it's not significant at the 1%, 10%, 5% level. And this is what he said to me. He goes, well, tell me, who was this person that came up with this statistical test? And I said, oh, somebody called Carl Friedrich Gauss. And this is what the director said to me. He goes, well, Gauss is wrong. You know, he said Gauss is wrong. So, and I'm there going, he had more belief in these machine learning algorithms, these black box machine learning algorithms, than Gauss, who does a method that's been around for over 200 years, been used all around the world. You know, this Gauss is wrong. So again, we have to be careful. Are we being scientists in a data-driven world? Are we moving towards being more scientific as being a scientist, or are we moving towards numerology? That is something that we have to look at and we have to challenge. Yeah. So I was saying, in terms of our mathematical modeling, is it in decline? No, we're not declining. What we have to be the strategic modelers, the OR modelers, and the scientists in the room, the one that actually looks and can challenge and can validate and can verify and come up with the understanding. That's what we need. That's what we need to be. Yeah, and you know, give you one prime example, AlphaGo, that actually beats the Go world champion in 2017. Now everybody was talking about the deep learning and the artificial neural network algorithm, but not many people was actually didn't realize that actually OR modeling was actually part of this algorithm. Actually, what you had is you did have a Monte Carlo tree search actually embedded in that algorithm. So it would have been impossible for AlphaGo to beat the world champion purely on machine learning. It needed that OR mathematical modeling algorithm as well. Yeah. So, and you know, even though I'm talking about, let's say AI, I do emphasize that AI, there are some fantastic models out there. There's some fantastic models out there. You know, there's this model being developed by this gentleman named E.J. Nubsed, and he's done the application of AI data-driven prediction machines for mitigating ethnic bias in pregnancy in medicine. Because what we found is that for, let's say, for Black women, they have a higher rate of having premature, stillbirths, and thing is, what he's trying to do is trying to find out, can we do some intervention, you know, at the early stage, so that we can help, so we can get, so that the baby can survive. Now they are doing better. They are doing an amazing work. You know, he's and his corporates. But one of the things that he has stated, and he did a talk at the last year's Black Heroes of Mathematics conference, basically stated is that what they're looking for, even though they're just taking an AI approach, they're looking for mathematicians and OR people to collaborate with them so they can actually bring scientific rigor to the data-driven methodology. They're looking for us to cooperate, not to be in competition. So the academics that I met in the Netherlands, they were looking for competition. This AI person is looking for cooperation, and that is the way, I believe, is the way forward. So again, you know, what we're talking about here is that you've seen now the OR Society is part of the Alliance for Data Science Professionals. And for those who are involved in doing data science, I believe that to go for this qualification, to get this certification, I think it's something that you need to do so that we can actually interface with our more data science leaning people and say, listen, we understand where you're coming from, but let's cooperate so that we can come up with a better solution, a solution that has understanding as one of its foundations. Yeah. And so, and again, you get yourself certified and you be committed to that professional competence. Yes. So, but as I said, quoting from Katherine Johnson, we always have STEM with us. Some things will drop out of the public eye and will go away, but there'll always be science, engineering, technology, and there'll always be mathematics and operational research. But I'm saying that the challenge to OR mathematical modeling in the increasing data-driven world are real, but we can look at our discipline's USP and learn lessons from the scientific past to see that our future is bright if we think strategically. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Nera. Yeah, we have some time for questions. So not sure what. Either put questions in the chat. Caitlin, do we have questions?
Nothing in the chat at the moment, question-wise.
Just comment with lots of fantastic points being made, so that's great. But if anyone would like to ask any questions, please do.
Okay, I mean,
right.
One thing we can say is that who believes, by the show of hands, who believe that Gauss is right?
Got raised hands coming into the thing now, so lots of raised hands going up. For
I'm glad about that because I can't see the raised hands. So I'm thinking, oh my word, no.
5 at the moment. We've actually got a question that's come in as well. A couple of questions coming in now. So the first one is, do you think the UK government sufficiently recognises the need for OR and mathematical modelling? So good question there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a raise, from the pandemic, there has been a rise in an awareness. Yeah. I know that there was a certain amount of funding that was going to come our way, and then that got shifted. So, and it didn't come our way. So the answer to that fundamentally is going to be no. If that money wasn't actually sent this way, we have to carry on campaigning because, especially if, let's say, for instance, if there's another pandemic is around the corner, they are going to be absolutely going to be reliant on the OR and the mathematical community on a whole various of things. So it's almost like saying, they said, thank you for that help, and then they moved on. So it's only to a certain extent, but it's got to be more. It has to be more.
Yeah, a couple of supplementaries on that actually around, are we as OR community sufficiently well represented, and perhaps OR is not seen as being strategic, which is quite interesting. But I think certainly in some of the projects around like the Academy for Mathematical Sciences, which we're involved in, there's going to be more of a focus on that kind of strategic policy representation going forward, which I think we want to have a real voice and role in that, and we have in the setting up of the Proto Academy. Another one here, Naira, how important do you feel a human-centric process is in embedding and utilising algorithms with people, the understanding bit?
Yeah, I think the human-centric is vital. This is important. We have to, take models from all perspectives, and that human-centric idea, whether it's, let's say, the human in the loop, or especially if this is the case of especially if we talk about human factors, it is so important. when we just do something which is totally automated, independent of that human interaction or the human decision making, that's when challenges will come. Do you know what I mean? And you don't even need to go too far back, you know, past before the COVID. What was the previous world crisis? You know, the financial crash. You know, there was a formula or an algorithm that was used. It was handed over to people that had whatever confidence in it, and then what was that check was using it outside of its assumptions, outside the place that we should be used, and we're making and you sort of decisions to make. Now, if you had that human centric design, actually these assumptions have been invalidated. I don't think that we can be using this model in this situation. We can't be making those decisions away we go. So I really do, you know, having almost, let's say, that technical overseer that looks at the algorithm saying, is this right? Is it the proper way to do it? Yeah, that's a good question, but absolutely yes.
Bob Scott says, great to see you again, Naira. He says you last met at the New to OR conference when it was held in Aston. And Bob's interested to know what has changed since then to encourage young professionals to follow the OR path that you so energetically describe.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I'd say is been good is one, we was talking about this Alliance for Data Science Professionals, and I'm really pleased, you know, I'm really pleased that the OR Society is part of it. That could have easily been the, you know, with greatest respect, that could easily been the British Computer Society, or the British Computer Society and the Royal Statistical Society could get together and say, oh, but the OR Society came to the table and said, look, actually, we belong here, you know, our members belong here, we're part of this and we're part of this. And I believe that with the OR Society, we bring that scientific, that absolute scientific rigor. So that is one of the things that has changed, where we've seen that, again, from the strategic point of view, the OR Society is becoming, you know, actually engaging in the more that strategic place, which is what that was, and there's other examples. So things have moved on. People are beginning to see, actually, yeah, OR as a career, and actually saying, yeah, can we bring much more understanding and more AI explain? When you're talking about these things such as AI explainability, what is one way of bringing around AI explainability? And the answer is OR.
Yeah. We've got a question in the Q&A from Mark. He says, it's great to hear someone challenge the crazy obedience to the AI monster. He says, personally, he's seen it achieve some breakthrough enhancements in his area, but you still need to test the quality of its learning. So the question is, how do we communicate the vital need to test AI, i.e. communicate to the public and or policymakers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that us who are in the know that understand about, you know, we understand that every algorithm or model has its assumptions and has its limitations. Now, this key thing is that an algorithm has no assumptions, an algorithm has no limitations, and that just throw the data in and no, you have to challenge that. And thing is, unless it's you know, there are popular books out there that warns about it, and I think it's important that either through talks in school or through popular talk or lectures to our senior leadership, saying, look, you know, without governance, without ethics, and without this whole idea of, you know, one of the issues about AI, if we're not careful, is that we could end up de-skilling and throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You know, there are certain skills, there's certain scientific thinking skills, like, you know, this like thought experiment. You know, the person that discovered the planet Neptune, or the person that discovered the phenomenon of a black hole. Back in those days, they didn't use that. They didn't use AI, and actually to lose that way of actually thinking, which you will find very much so in your OR members, to lose that and just say, I'll just go to the data, here's the algorithm, we don't worry about the limitations or the assumptions, and that's the answer. That's the thing that you need to challenge, because without that, we will have outcomes which will be embarrassing and have reputational damage to so many.
Another question in the chat as well. There's no doubt about the value that OR has and will bring to and is bringing to industry. This person's experiences in industry is that we're looking now for data scientists and machine learning experts to solve problems that have traditionally been solved by operational researchers. It's like reinventing the wheel. How can we deal with this situation?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's almost like saying it's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. See, what is AI good at? AI is good at, and machine learning is good at finding the hidden pattern. Yeah, but what is OR? Through this scientific rigor, thought experiment, and going through that logical step. What they're good at is actually finding the hidden logic. Now, to find the hidden logic is much more deeper than finding the hidden pattern. Yeah. Now, a hidden pattern has only got a certain sell-by date. Did you know what I mean? A very short sell-by date, but a hidden logic remains there for a long time. So that is one of the ways you can actually say why you do need, yeah, by all means, data scientists, but this is why you need OR people on the table at the table. So yeah, it's actually finding that hidden logic, and you can use it. Yeah, and you can use an analogy of what would you like? Would you like to buy that loaf of bread that will go stale in 5 minutes time, or would you like to buy that food that can remain that will remain there for a long time? And that's the difference.
So I think it's, as you were saying earlier, focus on your USP of what we're good at, and sort of shout about that and talk about that to policymakers to make sure we stay at the forefront, really, of the community. Brilliant. Absolutely. Great. I don't think there's any more questions in the chat or the Q&A at this stage, so we're good on time. So if there's nothing else for Naira at this point, we'll move on with the other parts of the AGM, if that's all right. I'd like to add my thanks to you, Naira, for your really interesting talk. Gilbert, would you like to add?
Yep. No, thank you very much, Naira. Very insightful, and clearly, yeah, we should continue this conversation and look at ways to raising the profile of OR, really. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much indeed for having me, and have a great AGM, and I'll speak to you again very soon.
Thanks.
Great pleasure. Yeah, I think, yeah, we do. We are moving on to the next item on the agenda, and as I mentioned, it will be a review of the past year. So Seb will kick us off with what we have been doing internally. So over to you, sir, please.
Thanks, Gilbert. Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who I haven't met yet, as Gilbert mentioned earlier, my name's Seb Hargreaves. I took over from Gavin in January this year, so about 6 months in post now. And I'd just like to sort of pay tribute to Gavin for his 16 years at the helm as the executive director of the OR Society. And Gavin continues on both as a member of the OR Society, but also in a part-time role as the IFAW's secretary, which is being supported by the OR Society. So that's great. So in terms of the review of the year, review of 2022, I'm going to take the sort of inward-looking parts in terms of the finances, the processes, the structure, and then I'm going to hand over to Gilbert, who's going to talk about all the good stuff that we've been doing last year, very much with a focus on the outward-looking products and services and things like that. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed with some of the sort of changes and where we got to with things last year. And then I'll cover some of the financial situation. You should have all had an opportunity to view the annual report and accounts, which were posted online, and the links were there for you to look through. Some of the things that I wanted to draw out from there, first of all, post-COVID, we've moved to a sort of more permanent hybrid working model for staff, which seems to be working really, really well, providing the staff with a nice balance between remote and office working. We obviously still have our building in Birmingham, Seymour House in Edward Street, and that office building is here for the staff to use and for us to hold team meetings, etc. And indeed, for any members who find themselves in Birmingham, you're very welcome to come to the office, and we can provide you with tea and coffee and that sort of thing, and a quiet place to work from if you need to. We entered our third year of our 3 to 5 year strategic plan last year, and one of the things that I was really keen to do when I came into post was just revisit that in terms of our strategy, given the changing sort of situation globally with the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, the war in Ukraine, how all these things have sort of affected our or changed the environment in which we based our previous strategy or our current strategy on. So we're going through a process at the moment to revisit that strategy, just to see whether those priorities and objectives set within that strategic plan still remain constant and still remain accurate, and then building out sort of operational delivery plans and tactical activity to support those strategic objectives. Obviously, the continued global changes have presented continuing challenges for the society, but also opportunities, and things like the hybrid working model, the opportunity to potentially let out the top floor of our building because we've got that extra space, and how we look to do things maybe slightly differently going forward, and the changing sort of working environment for many organizations, not just the society. And obviously we looked last year at our main priorities on top of our business as usual activities to ensure we were meeting our objectives. So if I cover the financial position, overall we're still in a very healthy position financially. Our total net assets within the society stand at 2.38 million. We have had, or through 2022, we had a fairly sizable drop in our investment values. We, like any organization, was not immune to the volatility within the markets, and that had a tangible effect on any organization's investment portfolios. I'm pleased to report that since the end of last year, our investments have recovered much of what was lost last year, but it meant that our net assets were down by 275,000 compared to 2021, and as I say, that due to that decrease in our investment values. Our income held up well, total income of 1.53 million in 2022, which was up 150,000 on 2021, and our expenditure 1.51 million. So some of these things were related to our sort of publishing contract with Taylor and Francis. You'll see in the next slide or two how important our publishing income is to the society, and we did have record income last year from our publications, but a bit of a word of warning that we're all aware that this isn't going to be sustainable into the longer term, mainly due to the changing financial revenue models associated with open access, and the changes from traditional subscription-based publication income to more sort of read and publish deals and that sort of thing. One of the challenges we had last year was in terms of forecasting our publication surpluses and our royalty payments, and there was issues around the currency fluctuations linked to all the things that we mentioned earlier that's going on in the world. So I'm working with Taylor and Francis to try and improve our forecasting in terms of predicting that in terms of budget planning, but we were fortunate in having a larger surplus than we'd forecast for last year, which put us in a better place financially than we had anticipated. As I mentioned, the income risks from open access affects our future publications income, and a question around how we mitigate that and look at diversifying our income. And keeping a handle on our costs to make sure that we're doing the right thing and keeping keeping the society sustainable financially into the future. But we extended, we renewed a contract with Taylor and Francis to 2026. And as a publisher, we're pleased with their performance and how we're doing with that. Income from events and conferences was up by 20,000, which relates to recovery following COVID pandemic. Obviously, everything had to sort of go online essentially in 2021. So last year we were able to bring back some in-person events, and income from those held up well, and also training income held up well, and our cost base for training decreased a little because we were still doing a lot of mostly online delivery, with everything moving online during COVID, and we've actually mainly kept that approach going forward, as it seems to work for all involved. Our total funds were down slightly, as I've mentioned. We did have a small income over expenditure surplus of £17,000 on our operating income expenditure, but the overall net assets, as I mentioned, were down by 275,000 due to the investment losses. We're still seeing volatility in the markets, to be honest, still, as a result of the Ukraine crisis and the cost of living, etc. And the board obviously remain cautious with regards to our funds to protect our cash position, which is still healthy, remains healthy. I've put a couple of graphs in here so you can see where the sources of our income come from. This is a slight concern, I think, to the society moving forward, in that we have a significant proportion of our income from publications, from our publications portfolio. Traditionally, we've relied heavily on our income from publications, and as I've mentioned, with the changes in relating to open access, we can't rely on such healthy publication income in the future. So we really need to look to diversify our income, because I think having 71% of our income coming from one source leaves ourselves open to potential issues if that income source completely dries up, which obviously it's not going to completely dry up, and we're looking at mitigations to ensure that we retain as much of that income as possible. But certainly we're looking to see how we can diversify our income streams to raise more income through, for example, events and conferences, potential trust and foundation funding, corporate support, our training, future accreditation and qualification portfolios. So there's lots of different opportunities, I think, there to look at increasing our income over time, and importantly diversifying our income over time. In terms of our expenditure, it's a lot more evenly spread across the various areas of our work. So charitable expenditure, our events and conferences, similar sort of proportions, quarter of our expenditure, costs of producing our publications as well, fairly significant as you would anticipate, and costs of supporting the membership and things as well through our various systems and processes and staff, etc., the central office team. But that's more evenly spread as you would hope. And in terms of our reach last year, pleased to report that membership and supporter numbers continue to improve, perhaps not at the rate that we would hope. And we're putting some work in to really try and project our value and our vibrancy, and these are our current numbers in terms of in terms of our membership numbers and supporter numbers. So at the end of the year, we had 3,731 members. The analytics network boasted over 2,000 members, and our LinkedIn group had over 6,000 members and a similar amount of Twitter followers as well. In addition, we've got 17 corporate partners, which includes Corda, part of BAE Systems. We've got NatWest Group, the Ministry of Justice, the Home Office, Department for Work and Pensions, Office for National Statistics, Ministry of Defence, NHS Wales, the Smith Institute, and others, HMRC, Scottish Government Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, etc. So they represent 835 affiliates. We've got 375 accreditees, which comprises of 164 fellows, 73 associate fellows, 52 associates, and 86 candidate associates. And there was 26 members accredited as chartered scientists and one as a registered scientist. So those accreditations and membership numbers are positive, but we hope to be able to grow those over the next few years as well, more significantly. So those are the financials and the numbers. I'm going to hand over now to Gilbert, who will present what we've been doing in a more outward-facing capacity.
Thanks a lot, Seb. Yeah. 2022 was another year of highlights. And Seb touched on the progress being made on the finances and also the membership. Okay. What we also have, it's along with that, we have a full range of activities which we delivered in line with our three charitable aims. The first is to advance knowledge, second, advance interest, and then the third, really advancing education in OR. So in terms of advancing knowledge, we have the journal development. Seb touched on that, the Society's portfolio of academic journals continued to make a substantial contribution to both advancing and sharing knowledge. Statistics relating to the usage of the Society's journal, we sort of saw year-on-year increases across all titles. And the number of article downloads in 2022 exceeded the 1 million mark. And this was an increase of 10% compared to 2021. And then the total number of mentions of the journal on Twitter in 2022 was 40% higher than in 2021. Of course, this reflects the considerable efforts of the editorial teams, the Society, and Taylor and Francis to promote the journals on social media. On the academic, for mathematical sciences, we continue to work with the CMS on the next steps towards establishing the academy. In June, members were recruited to the Academy's Executive Committee. Pleased to call out that 3 of our members on the executive committee. Ruth Kaufman covers governance and fellowships. Professor Christian Carey covers practitioner affairs and knowledge exchange. This is now has been renamed implementation of mathematical sciences. And Professor Miguel Anjos as an advisory board member. A major consultation on the academy is underway, closing date 30th of June. Thank you to all of you who have submitted your inputs, and the society will formally submit a response by the 30th of June. And then on qualifications and apprenticeship, the society continues to develop a qualification and apprenticeship program. We actually submitting the application to OFCall for the purposes of becoming an endpoint assessment organization of level 7 apprenticeship. We will be sharing more of this as progress is being made. And then on advancing interest in OR, the society is still considering how best to combine online with face-to-face elements. Okay, the return to physical in-person events has been gradual and started with the 2022 Analytics Summit in ISMO. A key highlight for us was the conference at the University of Warwick, very successful. And we are going to do the same this year. Analytics development, AI assurance, Naira touched on this in its talk. We believe that it's time for the society to start embracing what AI can offer us to complement what we offer as a society to the wider community. So we are continuing to implement the recommendations from the AI tax and finish group. And this has been reflected through our links with the work of the Validate AI group. We are working with them to support the implementation of trustworthy and responsible AI. And then on advancing education in OR, endpoint assessment, I touched on that, that's ongoing. And also we had strong representation at a number of events like the British Science Fair, New Scientist Live, couple of university career fairs as well, and we also run our own Careers Day in 2022 in Birmingham. Over 100 students attended that event. Just to flag other highlights, of course, successfully delivered the Bill and Blackett lectures. Bill lecture was given by Professor Val Belton, who was also our 2020 Bill Medal winner. The Blackett lecture was given by Professor Christina Pagel. Both lectures very well received and attended. Really led to healthy discussions during these sessions. And some of our 2022 highlights, contributions reflect our charitable aims as well. We witnessed an expansion of Warren, both in terms of the number of participants and its activities during the year. Warren held its first land lecture, named after one of the early female pioneers in the field. The network is very vibrant and provides a key focus for addressing issues facing women and increasingly men as well in our profession. And finally, Alliance for Data Science Professionals, Naira touched on this. We are pleased to be heavily involved, okay, and would encourage that, as Naira said, let's make sure that we encourage AI machine learning practitioners in our organizations to sign up for these certifications. Thank you. And I'll now hand over to John to share with us what is in store for us this year.
Yeah, hi there, everybody. Yeah, so what I'd like to talk about is two things, really. One is OR 65. So again, we have an in-person conference, 12th to the 14th of September at the University of Bath. We already have a very high level of interest in this. We've got something like 240 papers, so it's one of the bigger conferences that we've organised, bigger annual conferences that we've organised. And you know, you are all very, very welcome and encouraged to come along. We also have our 75th anniversary. Now, this is actually the 75th anniversary of the OR Club, but we're slightly eliding matters here to make it the 70th, to treat this as our 75th anniversary for the society. And we've got a theme for this, which is the past, the present, and the future of OR. And what we're going to do is, to avoid clashing with other 75th anniversaries that are here, like the foundation of the NHS, what we're going to do is we're going to start the celebrations at OR 65 and finish them at OR 66. And in the interim, what we're hoping to do is to use some of our existing events and activities in order to basically highlight the 75th anniversary and carry out various activities to celebrate it. We have got a talk as part of Making an Impact at OR 65, which will consider the past of operational research and how, well, of OR practice and how we've got here. And in the OR 66, one of the things that we're hoping to do is to look at the future of OR. Now, in the interim, though, one of the things we're interested in doing with this is making use of the website and making use of social media and things like that. And from that point of view, your society needs you. You would have had a picture of Lord Kitchener pointing at you, but I thought that best to leave that to one side, given some current sensitivities. But what we're after is we're after videos, stories, memes, ideas, anything to do with the past, the present, and the future of OR that we can then use as part of our publicity campaign. We're also interested in any ideas any of you might have for ways in which the 75th anniversary could be celebrated. And that's really all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, so I think we now move on to the resolutions. So there were 6. I think most of you have had a chance to vote. It was sent out and voting as per our custom, voting by ballot. So the aim for this section is to approve the minutes of the AGM that was held last year on 7th of July, and to approve the annual reports and accounts for the year ended 31st December 2022, and also the reappointment of Sir Vincent as our auditors to the society. Then there were others as well. So if we quickly go through this, we had both actually, just to be efficient, and we did this last year as well. What we do have is that Stephen Lorimer proposed and Christina Phillips seconded. So we will just show you what the results of the votes were. So we go to the next one, please. Yeah.
So yeah, this was the minutes of the AGM held on the 7th of July. Eagle-eyed, Graham Rand actually emailed me to just say he spotted a typo on page 46, which was actually the list of Beale Medal recipients. I think we've got it down as a K.H. Haley, previous Beale medalist, but it should be K.B. Haley. So we'll make sure we update that for future reports. So thank you to Graham for spotting that one. But essentially all the minutes were assumed as being accurate other than that, and the voting was there, as you can see, and so that resolution has passed in terms of the minutes of the previous meeting. The next resolution is the annual report and accounts. for the year ended 31st December. And this is where I should have talked about the typo. Obviously, that relates to page 46 of the annual report and accounts, not the minutes from last year. And as I said, Graham picked up that typo in one of our past Beale Medal recipients. So we'll make sure that's updated for future reports. But again, that was voted on, and you can see the voting stats there. And again, that one was passed. The next resolution was to reappoint Sayer Vincent LLP as our auditors for the Society's accounts. Once again, the voting is up there, and that was passed. These first three resolutions just need a simple majority. Now we come on to the special resolutions, which require a 75% majority. And these are agreements to set the annual membership subscription rates with effect from the 1st of January next year. So these are the rates that have been recommended by PMW committee, approved by board, and have been obviously shared and circulated with the membership for voting. And pleased to say that the votes of the resolution's been passed with a 93% total there. And then we have the next one is for the accreditation application fees for the same time period with effect from the 1st of January next year. You can see those there. Once again, voting has passed that at 90%. Resolution 7 was the accreditation add-on rates. Oh, I think I've put a typo in there. That should be 20 to 4, not 23. But again, those have been passed on the voting with a 90% pass rate. And I think that's the last one. Yes, that's the final resolution this year. So it's now just an opportunity for any questions on what you've heard. I have got one actually that's come in the Q&A from Graham about if the top floor is let, what are the plans for the library stroke archive, which is currently stored there? Yeah, great question. The plan will be to look to relocate the library or the archive to make it to have it housed somewhere where it's more accessible, really, to be honest. We don't need to do anything until such time as the top floor is let. And with the current market, I'm not sure how quick it's likely that the office will be let. But the rental income or the top floor has been appraised. I've had it appraised by a commercial agent. They think we could achieve around £17,500 per annum rent for the top floor, which I think would be a useful bit of income for the Society. And I'm just very aware that the library and archive sits up there on the top floor and is never accessed by anybody. And so it would be lovely to be able to try and repurpose that and have that cited maybe at a host university or somewhere where there's where it's accessible for students, early career researchers, anyone that wants to, members, anyone that wants to access that. So I guess that's a point for discussion at some point. If anyone's got any suggestions or ideas with what we could do with that, we've obviously got a whole back catalogue of journals, both OR Society journals and other OR Society journals like Informs, etc. So it's a pretty comprehensive archive. And if anyone has any ideas of where we could locate that to or what we could do with it, I'd be very happy to hear those. So that's that one. But that essentially brings us to the end of the formal part of the AGM. unless anyone has any further questions or comments, and I'll hand back to Gilbert for closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Seb. Yeah, I'd like to express my appreciation and a society's appreciation for your presence and active participation. Special thanks to Naira, John, Seb, Caitlin, and the Oral Society staff for making sure that this delivery went smoothly. Thanks again, and I'll bring this meeting to a close.
Thanks, Gilbert.